Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
And very happy Indigenous Peoples Day to everybody out there. Indigenous Peoples Day. In other words, greetings to all of you who were trampled when the settlers arrived here to the New World and took it away from you. And now you've got sour grapes showing up at Calypso Louie at the Million Man March Redux over the weekend. Great to have you here. El Rushbo behind the golden EIB microphone, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, and the email address, elrushbo@eibnet.com. Columbus Day it is, and of course that's so politically incorrect. You can't, nothing to celebrate there, folks. Columbus Day, that began the end of everything that was sacred. And it's when the white Europeans showed up and they brought horses and they brought syphilis and they brought racism and they brought bigotry and they brought homophobia and they brought their own version of capitalism. They brought environmental destruction, animal insignificance and destruction as well. I mean, just virtually everything wrong with the greatest nation on earth traced back to Columbus Day. And instead, several cities today are actually celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. And of course, when you look at it, I mean, why should Native Americans or why would they want the heritage of Europeans celebrated? You know, bad memories and all that. I mean, what have they ever done for the world? Unlike the Indians, who gave us tobacco, great PSAs on TV about keeping the climate unpolluted and all that. So anyway, we've got some audio sound bites, and it was the Million Man March Part 2. Calypso Louie gathered the troops in Washington, the mall, to redo the Million Man March, and it was, I'm glad it happened. We've got some audio sound bites from it. It was a bunch of people that hate this country on parade, and they were saying so blatantly and in front of everybody. We also have, of course, the political news is based on the fact the Democrat debate is tomorrow night in Las Vegas. And there's all kinds of concern and worry about this. CNN says they're going to put a podium up for Joe Biden. They're trying to entice Biden into showing up because without Trump on the stage, actually without the Republicans on the stage, this debate's going to be a yawner. Nobody's going to watch it. Not in terms of the numbers that watch the Republican debate. The people who are going to tune into this thing tomorrow night are going to be tuning in to see a car wreck. They want to see Hillary implode. They want to see whatever Bernie Sanders has, who he is, what he's going to do, what it's going to look like. And by the way, you know what? CNN has made an announcement. Anderson Cooper, host of Anderson Cooper 19, has made an announcement. And that is they are not going to pit Democrat candidates against each other. That is not part of the debate format. Now, that is a distinct difference from the first Fox debate when that's exactly what did happen. And there are a number of theories as to why it happened. I mean, the theories run the gamut. Fox wanting to show everybody they're not in the tank for the Republicans. Fox wanted to demonstrate that they can be hard on Republicans. Fox wanting to take out all opponents of Jeb Bush. I mean, there were any number of theories running around to explain that theory. So it's Anderson Cooper who's just out front here saying, sorry, we're not going to do that. We're not going to pit these people against each other. Of course, never did expect that to happen. That's the difference. You know, CNN, the drive-by media, they don't have any guilt feelings. They don't think they have to prove themselves to anybody. And they certainly don't think they have to be critical of people on their own side for credibility, which sadly is what many Republicans still believe. That the only way you can be credible as a Republican or as a conservative media person is to be critical of your own team. That proves that you're not biased. That proves you are not afraid to criticize your own people, except it never happens on the left. CNN would never, ever do anything. Now, the candidates might, but CNN's not going to do anything to make any of these people look bad. They rally the troops, they circle the wagon, they do everything they can to protect. It's like this movie with Mary Mapes and about Dan Rather and this National Guard business. You have Robert Redford as Rather. You have Kate Blanchett as Mary Mapes. And it's an effort here. This is what the left always does. Dan Rather and Mapes totally faked the story. They totally made up and forged documents. And they were caught red-handed. And what did they do? At the time, the other two leading anchors, ABC and NBC, were Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw. And they put together an awards banquet for Dan Rather. This was in weeks of all this happening, because they realized that what was going on with CBS and Rather, while it was good for them competitively at CBS and ABC, Rather was still one of the deans of drive-by journalism, and they couldn't let him take a hit because they all take a hit. So they had to circle the wagons, and they prop Rather up and give him, I don't know what the award was for. I don't remember. It's not the point. The point is they had this big banquet where they gave Rather some award, great journalist, greatest of all time, or some such thing as that. And it was meant to blunt what had actually happened. That's what this movie is. This movie is an attempt to revise history for demographic groups, younger people who may not know the story, but this is classic of what the left does. It's like HBO is in the process of making a movie about the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings for people who have no knowledge of that, young people. They never, ever let this stuff go, and they never leave it up to public opinion to be decided when they have so much control over so many elements of the media. It turns out, I don't understand this, but I am mentioned a number of times in Mary Mapes' biography, which is what this book is based on. Her biography, or the movie is based on her biography, and I'm mentioned in it 6 times, and I'm ripped to shreds. She's driving along, listening to me talking about her dad criticizing her as almost a commie babe liberal and so forth. Now she got mad about that. I 6 times mentioned in her biography. So I got the audio sound bites of that coming up. This is interesting, too. Let me give you 2 headlines here side by side. Over on Yahoo News, this is from, I think, Saturday, so it's a weekend story. Clinton's support slides ahead of first Democrat debate. Just days before she will take the stage in the first Democrat debate, Hillary Clinton's lead over Bernie Sanders has narrowed. Her support among Democrat voters fell 10 points within less than a week. She is literally plummeting in poll after poll after poll. This story has shown, it's a Reuters story, but if it's at Yahoo News, that's where the low information crowd picks it up. And I just as an aside, NBC News must just be really disappointed after all they did for Hillary during the week. Did you hear what the comedian Amy Schumer, who hosted Saturday Night Live, openly said how disappointed and frustrated she was that during the show, whenever Hillary's name came up or whenever Hillary was impersonated or whatever that's included in the show, that there was hardly any applause for, and she was upset by that? She was embarrassed. She was upset that there wasn't more support for Hillary in a Saturday Night Live audience. And I'm saying NBC overall's got to be somewhat disturbed, too. They've pulled out all the stops trying to save Hillary, trying to help Hillary, trying to make Hillary look human, trying to make her look like she's something other than a robot. Had that Saturday Night Live appearance. Anyway, here's Reuters. Clinton support slides ahead of first Democrat debate. Over here at the New York Times, the headline is, from Donald Trump, hints of a campaign exit strategy. Trump's numbers continue to rise. Trump's numbers once again are rising. One of the untold stories of recent Republican polling is that Carly Fiorina has now dipped to below double digits. The only two in double digits remain Trump and Ben Carson, who, by the way, is enmeshed in his own silly controversy. You know what Ben Carson had the temerity to say? He said the Jews had had guns, that the Holocaust might have turned out differently. And people are reacting to that like it's the most insane, ludicrous thing anybody's ever said. You know, and I'm wondering if people forgotten what happened in Warsaw when the Jews were summarily overtaken. Ben Carson's exactly right, but it's not. It's more profound. It's that these people are treating his comment as absolutely sophomoric. And he's so out of touch, so unprepared, so unqualified. What kind of an idiot would say anything like this? And yet all he did was utter blatant common sense. It stands to reason that had the Jews been armed, the Nazis would have had a little bit more trouble. They would have had some resistance. It's common sense. The reason I think the left is in the media is going nuts is because they're taking that comment and they're transposing it into the current climate of the American debate on guns. And they're thinking, what would Jews today want guns for? Jews don't need it. It's silly. Carson's a nutcase. And they're invoking, you never invoke Hitler. You don't bring Hitler up. You just don't do it. That's political neophyte stuff. But on the facts, Carson's exactly right. Anyway, my point here is Donald Trump is either holding steady or back to gaining ground. He is undergoing a bit of a transformation on the stump now, too. That is one of a little bit more substance, discussion of issues. Some of the theatrics have been dialed back. They're still there. And his support is becoming more solid and broad-based. And yet the New York Times has this story, hints of a campaign exit strategy, despite the fact that Trump said he's not going anywhere. Trump has said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not getting out. Why are you even asking me this? I'm not the guy down 10 points. I'm not the guy that ought to be indicted. You're asking the wrong person. I'm not getting out. And yet there they are. In unmistakable ways over the last 2 weeks, whether he has intended to or not, Donald J. Trump has started to articulate a way out of the presidential race, a verbal parachute that makes clear he has contemplated the factors that would cause him to end his bid. Now, never mind that for a week, Trump has insisted the drive-bys are mistaken and that he has no exit strategy whatsoever. Never mind that, as John Heilemann at Bloomberg said on MSNBC 3 days ago, if Jeb Bush had Trump's numbers, everybody would declare the race over. Nobody would be talking about an exit strategy if these were Jeb Bush's numbers. Nobody is talking about an exit strategy except the drive-bys, who have it in their guts that Trump has never been serious. He isn't serious. All of this is for a reason that we don't know yet, but he's never intended to win this. He's never intended to stay in it all the way. He's never intended to get the nomination. And so they've talked themselves into believing that Trump is in the middle of some kind of stunt here. They haven't quite figured out what it is, but at some point he's going to get out. So that becomes the narrative, if you will, or the template around which the coverage of Trump is written and broadcast. So now, even though Trump has not said a word about getting out, they think they've heard him say so. Meanwhile, over here, you have Hillary Rodham Clinton, who is just shedding support. It is just abandoning her in droves. And not a single story about the possibility that Mrs. Clinton might get out of the race. And the drive-bys believe they're fooling everybody. That's the funny thing about this. There has been so much education about the drive-bys. So many people much more informed about them than ever. It's not a majority yet. But if you take a look at polling data on respected professions and respected people in those professions, people in journalism are just not near the bottom. They're in the tank in terms of respect. And other indications of polling data that people don't believe what they hear and so forth. Still, they wield a lot of power, so I'm not under any illusions here. But it's amazing to watch them operate as though it's 40 years ago and they're still pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Anyway, like a brief time out here, my friends. It's a brief setting of the table here. Also, I have decided, based on recent history, that we need to do a modified caller clinic today. And the reason is the momentum and the tempo of the program noticeably slows or even comes to a screeching halt when I go to the phones. And that won't do. The momentum has to maintain. And I think the reason for this is, well, I know what the reasons are. Because I have a full-fledged bond with all of you in this audience, especially those of you who call. So just a modified caller clinic, maybe getting into that today, depending on if circumstances warrant. In the meantime, there's that I mentioned and other stuff that I haven't gotten to. And, of course, the great surprise of all days is your calls and whatever it is you have to say. So sit tight. All of it starting up again when we get back. No. I know that Trump said that he wouldn't be in the race if he was losing, if his bottom dropped out of his poll numbers. But that was not an exit strategy. He did not say, yeah, I'm waiting to get out the race when my numbers finally plummet. Yeah, that's what I meant. That's not what he was saying. I play golf a lot. I have no intention of quitting the game, even though I threaten to every time I play. I was out playing golf one day with a couple of guys, nice guys. You'd know them both. They can't hit the ball 150 yards off tee. And I said to the fourth in the group, I said, if I couldn't hit it 150 yards off the tee, I'd quit the game. I mean, well, what's the point of coming out here? 150 yards off the tee, for crying out loud. That's barely past the ladies' tee. But I wouldn't quit the game. Trump is not, they've been hounding him. When are you going to get out of the... If my numbers tanked, why stay in? He was trying to insult the others. His point in making that claim was, what are they still doing in here? These guys with 1%, 3%, 6%, what the hell? They don't have a prayer. You need to be talking to them about getting it. If I was one of those guys, I'd get out. And that became, it became a whole story unto itself. Trump, I will exit race if I am losing in polls. And they've kept it up. Like here at the New York Times in this story, in 3 television interviews, Mr. Trump, who's made his standing in the polls a central facet of his campaign. No, he has not. Who's made his standing? He was trying to point out that if he was lagging as far behind as some of the others, he wouldn't waste his time. He was about people like Lindsey Graham and Pataki, some of the others. And Mr. Trump spoke about what would prompt him to quit a race in which he's currently leading in the polls. Trump said, I'm not a masochist. If I were doing poorly, if I saw myself going down, stop calling me because you no longer have any interest in Trump because he has no chance, I'd go back to my business. That has become Trump has exit strategy. So they're creating a non-existent, phony narrative. Anyway, it's how they do it. Back after this. Kicking off a brand new week of broadcast excellence, hosted by me, Rush Limbaugh. This is the most listened to radio talk show in America and the most talked about host of the most listened to show in all of America. The funniest headline I have seen so far about the Democrat debate? You want to know what it is? I mean, it's from the New York Times. It was on Friday, actually, and the headline is, in debate, Hillary Clinton will display skills honed over a lifetime. Folks, we're dealing here with a genuine dry ball. I mean, Mrs. Clinton does not have any connectivity with with Democrat voters. She's got no bond. I don't know how else to describe this other than the ways that I have. I mean, she does a book signing and nobody shows up. The people that don't have any real desire to, I mean, they're there because it may be historic. She's a former first lady. She's Hillary Clinton, get a book or whatever, but it's not large numbers of people that show up. She just does not have any kind of connection. And there's a reason why. She doesn't. I don't think she particularly likes people, particularly those that she would consider to be her lessers. I think Hillary Clinton is a classic class individual, class conscious, and people that are beneath her in station, very little interest in them. She can't even talk a good game of compassion. She can't, in my mind, she doesn't even talk a good game of caring about people. It's all robotic. I mean, like, who was it? I guess it was Rolling Stone magazine asked a question last week. How many times do you have to launch yourself? I mean, this woman's been on the public scene since 1992. And arguably before that, but certainly 1992, the presidential campaign, everybody in the world got to know Hillary Clinton. 1992 to today is 20-plus years. And she's still a mystery. She still has to introduce herself to people. She's more a curiosity than she is an actual figure with whom people have some kind of connection. And by that, a vested interest. I mean, Hillary doesn't have any kind of even perceived personal connection, relationship with any of these people supposedly so supportive of her, wanting her in the White House, and the idea that skills that have been honed for a lifetime on display on Tuesday night. And the truth is, her handlers and everybody else are scared stiff because they don't know what they're going to get. Are they going to get the screeching Hillary? Are they going to get the ain't tired Hillary, where she tries to fake a black dialect? Now, none of this is to say, I don't want anybody to misunderstand, because the other side of this coin is she is the likely Democrat nominee despite all of this. And simply because there is a D next to her name on the ballot, she stands a chance of winning. But that's the reason why. It isn't all this other stuff that people are not personally invested in her. They are invested in her candidacy because it's the Democrats. It's the Democrat Party. It's Hillary as a way to keep the Republicans out of power. But there isn't a lot of love. There isn't a lot of support personally for Hillary. And in fact, I think whatever she's 10 points down in the polls, Bernie Sanders climbing, but he's not going to be the nominee. I mean, even Lanny Davis was overheard on the train on the way to New York from Washington. It might have been this morning. There was Lanny Davis and some of his buddies were on the train. I think it was Amtrak. And there was a conservative media person they didn't recognize sitting across the aisle, heard their conversation. They were talking about all these various Democrats, and they were talking about Bernie Sanders, and no way he's going to get the nomination, parroting me. Lanny Davis in the tank for Hillary because he's in the tank for the Clintons, calling Biden a buffoon. I mean, everything that we think about all these Democrats, these other Democrats were admitting among themselves. It happened to be overheard by some conservative media blogger or some such thing who's begun to report it. So, despite all these glaring weaknesses, the odds that she's not going to be the nominee are really slim. One of the great ironies. There isn't an Obama. And by the way, Obama hasn't helped either. You know, Obama did this 60 Minutes interview. And in the 60 Minutes interview with Steve Croft talking about the email scandal, he said Hillary made a mistake. That totally undercuts Hillary's effort to blame it on somebody else. When Obama comes out and says Hillary made a mistake. Well, she's going to have a tough time offloading this blame to somebody else. If Obama, who is still revered and respected personally, there is a bond of connection some people have with him. It's dwindling, but it's certainly far greater bond of support than Hillary has and has ever had. A quick phone call here. And by the way, I mentioned earlier I might have to do caller clinic today, and there's any number of ways we could do a caller clinic. And I could do a caller clinic without taking calls and just give a series of examples and instructions. Or I could take calls, and if something happens in the call that would make me stop everything and point out something as part of a caller clinic, and do it that way. But that embarrasses the caller. No, not good. What are you saying? Good. And it might help to remember the purpose of calls. I think a lot of people forget this. It's very, very, very important. The purpose of a caller is to make the host look good. Now, that's not a talk radio rule. That is a Rush radio show rule. But it's not what you think. A caller does not make me look good by praising me or complimenting me. That's not what is meant. A caller makes me or the host look good by inspiring, by triggering additional thought, causing an increase in adrenaline, which increases energy and so forth. There's any number of ways a caller can make the host look good. But it does not mean praise and compliments, because anybody can do that. And that's not what it means. So let me just two things that are at the top of my mind. I'm going to take a break. We'll come back and start with calls and the audio sound bites here on Mary Mapes and me and her book and Dan Rather and forgeries and fraud and all that. One of the things I think that callers do not know, and I'm picking this up because of what callers say increasingly, a number of callers are saying, as I was telling your screener. Folks, you need to know, I do not talk to the screener about your call. He does not tell me what you said. I have no idea what you've told the screener, and I don't want to know what you've told the screener. What you have told the screener is relevant only in the sense that qualifies you to get on the air. But I think a lot of people think that they're on hold for so long that before I get to a call, I'm going to have a little conference here, and Snerdley's going to say, this caller wants to say this and said this and said that. That does not happen. The only thing I know is there is a call screener computer here, and it lists every caller, their first name, and where they say they're calling from. And it has a one-line summary of what they want to talk about. That's it. I don't know what they're going to say about it. I don't know anything other than the general outline idea and the name. I don't know. I know the gender, but I don't know the age or anything. All I know is where they. So, as callers, do not start by saying, as I was telling your screener, because I don't know what you said to the screener. It doesn't matter. The screener hasn't told me anything you've told him, and therefore I don't know anything you've said. Number two, and very crucial, if the first words out of your mouth are not what I think you're going to talk about, red flags go up immediately, and my finger is hit right next to the dump button. It's not that I suspect fraud. It's that I don't want to waste time here. If you say that you want to call about Hillary and her debate performance and you start off talking about Trump and something else, then wait a minute, something doesn't compute. I get suspicious, a little concerned, and what happens, the whole momentum that we build up slows down, and I don't want to have to spend valuable time steering the caller back to what the caller wanted to talk about in the first place. So, if you are approved and screened to get on the program to talk about X, make sure that when we come to you, talk about X. Otherwise, well, you know, I never hang up on anybody, as you well know. Nobody is treated rudely on this program. But it can slow things down, and the worst thing that can happen is for the momentum to be brought to a screeching halt. And if you hear me say, hi, so-and-so, you're up, welcome, that means you're on the air. That is not another stand by, you're up in 10 seconds. That means it's happened, you're here. What should have happened is that Mr. Snerdley should have given you a heads up that you're next and to stand by. And then after that, the next voice you hear is mine, and that means go. So just a few little things here, all designed to streamline the content of the program. Be back with much more after this. Don't go away. And back we are. El Rushbo, as always, have my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. This is Ryan in Fort Phil, Oklahoma. Great to have you on the program, Ryan. Hi.
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Limbaugh. When you mentioned this morning the dropping poll numbers of Hillary, what crossed my mind was rope-a-dope. What I mean is, as we know, the polls create the news and opinion. They don't reflect it.
Right.
Your opinion is regardless of her performance, I think the post-debate narrative will be twofold. One of them is she's going to be the new comeback kid. She's going to be Bill all over again. And the second narrative could be it's going to discourage Biden from getting in. So I just wanted your opinion on that post-debate narrative.
Well, now, you know what? I got to tell you something, Ryan. You get an A as a caller in terms of following the edicts of the just concluded caller clinic. You got in there, you got it, and you got out, and you did not, importantly, slow down the momentum of the program. I think it's a great question.
Well, thank you.
I think it's given how much news today is manufactured, given that polling can produce whatever the polling unit wants. They've admitted so. By the way, did you see, Ryan, I don't know, have you seen that Gallup has announced they are getting out of the presidential polling business?
I did, yes.
They're getting, you know why they said they're getting out?
I don't remember the reason.
Because they can't guarantee that what they're producing is accurate. There are too many people that lie to them, they say. There are too many people that now using cell phones, they can't find a decent, trustworthy sample. Gallup is one of the people that sort of blew it in the 2012 race, so they're getting out of the whole presidential polling business, and they're going to stay focused on cultural things, social things, I think maybe other political races. But look, the question is extremely valid given we know the drive-bys are in the tank for Hillary. We know that NBC's in the tank for Hillary, and there really isn't anybody else. I mean, Martin O'Malley is not going to do anything, I don't think. Bernie Sanders is not going to be permitted to get the nomination. Biden, remains a wild card. But Biden is a three-time loser running on his own for president. They don't have anybody that's won in this cycle. Hillary's a loser in presidential elections. Biden, a three-time loser. Bernie Sanders, no way, Jose, not going to get the nomination no matter what. And Martin O'Malley lagging too far behind. John Kerry too late as we sit here today. So then you take CNN's announcement that they are not going to pit these candidates against each other like Fox did in the first Republican debate. So the candidates are going to be allowed to sink or swim. So, yeah, you come out with polling that shows Hillary plummeting. And by the way, I think that polling is pretty legit. Bernie Sanders does have a lot of legitimate excitement out there. And Hillary isn't exciting. Hillary does not create excitement. She doesn't engender it. The Democrat Party is not loaded with average, ordinary, everyday voters champing at the bit. Get out there and vote. Election coming up. It's sort of a ho-hummer. Obama has everybody down in the dumps and depressed. Obama's let everybody down. Obama's not who he said he was going to be, hasn't done what he said he was going to do. The things he did do have made a big mess out of everything. So that there isn't none of what Obama said he was going to do has happened. But more importantly, the things Obama has done have failed miserably. I mean, it's really, in one sense, not a good time to be a Democrat because you're living with the hard, cold reality that your policies don't work. And there are enough hardcore, random, ordinary, everyday Democrats who really believe all of this big government stuff. Democrat Party's made up a whole bunch of stratas. And you've got the leadership strata, and which is where all the conspiracies take place. And by that I mean their own version of the elites and the inside the Beltway establishment and so forth. But you do have some true believers who are not in this to see Republicans taken on the chin. They really do believe all this liberalism stuff. They really believe that there's a utopia out there. And for them, Obama getting everything he wants with hardly any opposition and none of it working, my point is there's not a whole lot of excitement on the Democrat side. And what excitement I think there is, or energy they have, is fueled more by hatred for us than love for Hillary or Bernie Sanders or any of that. So it's a long way of answering your question, but yeah, you have a poll come out the week before the debate, Hillary down 10 points. Debate, post-debate poll, show Hillary really cleaning up. A lot of people love her. Come back, Hillary, and so forth. Blunt the poll. Yeah, you could do that even if the poll is legit. So it's a great question, Ryan. We'll be back and continue after this. Sure, with Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz said on CNN yesterday, she said that Republicans are saying, yeah, let's just kick women out of this country. And the scary thing is, you have some low-information voters. They're going to believe it. They will, Snurdly. War on women. Don't doubt me on this. That's a reality we're going to have to come to grips with. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have, and that's because I'm doing what I love, doing what I was born to do. And it's true what they say. When you do what you love, it's not really work. Even though it is. You don't mind. Here's the telephone number if you'd like to be on the program, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. I'm telling you, Snurdly, do not discount this. We've been making this mistake now since the early 90s. The left will go out, the Democrats, somebody will say something just totally outrageous. Like all these clowns that predicted the end of the earth in 10 years. We didn't clean up the oceans, or name your prediction. 20 years ago, if we didn't fix, or 40 years ago, if we didn't fix global warming in 20 years, we weren't going to be able to inhabit the East Coast. I mean, all of these things. Or take, this food's going to kill you, that food's going to save you. People believe this stuff. And the latest example of that, I didn't get to it on Friday. Do you realize the serious nutritional consequences there have been to the government lying to you about not eating butter and not eating whole milk and avoiding cream? All of this, don't eat that stuff because it's so high in fat, it's going to clog your artery. It turns out to be just wrong, just dead wrong. There are no health consequences to eating butter instead of margarine. In fact, margarine may be worse now given this, hydrogenated stuff. But, people skim milk all the time, no whole milk candy, no cream, give me butter. And so it turns out that there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's just people have been lied to over and over and over, and they believe it. And people have actually been talked into believing that normal, everyday milk is going to kill them, for crying out loud. And it never has been true. Now, if you don't like it, that's fine. But people are avoiding it because they think it's going to kill them or shorten their lifespan. Same thing with butter. And they've just been lied to about it. But when the government says it, when the government proclaims it, that's why Democrats want control of the government. It has an automatic respect factor and credibility to it. Even though the government makes most mistakes, big time, screws up everything it does, so bad that new fixes are necessary that the government said to be the only ones it can engage in, they just screw everything up. And then they are the first ones people demand fix it, the people that made the mess in the first place. Because government has some automatic acceptability, credibility to it that people do not want to think ill of the government. So here comes Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. And she's on CNN, and she's talking to Dana Bash, and Dana Bash didn't act like she was crazy when she heard this. So Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, who, like Hillary Clinton, ought to have been laughed out of American politics years ago. Hillary Clinton, Trump's right, should be indicted for crying out loud, and would be were she a Republican. Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz is simply, you take what she says outside the political arena, she is sued into poverty for defamation and slander, and you name it. The woman can't tell the truth about Republicans to save her life. But since she's in politics, she's free to say whatever she wants to say. So the Democrats have concocted, with the help of ABC News, this war on women meme. And Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, who still is the chairman of the Democrat National Committee, and by the way, ask yourself, why is that? Supposedly, she's this huge embarrassment. Supposedly, she won't shut up. She makes these crazy, wacko statements. The reason they haven't gotten rid of her is that she is viewed to be effective in some places. And admit it, folks, you run into leftists all the time that believe the most cockamamie, crazy stuff you can't believe. They believe it, but they do. About us, I mean. They are so impressionable, it's not funny. So here's Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz on CNN yesterday telling Dana Bash that all the remaining Republican presidential candidates are trying to out-Trump Donald Trump. They're saying, yeah, let's just kick women. Let's just kick them and the immigrants out of the country. Now, when did women end up in this? See, already the Democrats have made people believe that Republicans want to get rid of all the immigrants, when all anybody's interested in here is preserving America and American culture and assimilation and legal immigration. What everybody's up in arms about is no end in sight to open borders and illegal immigration. But the Democrats have convinced people that the Republicans want to find every immigrant there is and send them home. And now Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz throws women in the mix, and Dana Bash just sits there and nods. Now, I'm not saying everybody who watches this stuff's going to believe it, but we cannot count on the fact that people are going to hear this and laugh at it and think that this woman's an idiot. There are going to be people who believe it. I don't know what percentage of Democrat voters, but I'm telling you it's probably bigger than you think. No, she didn't jump the shark with that. If she jumped, she's jumped the shark I don't know how many previous comments over the years. And by the way, you can't even find, Drudge had this up. I saw this, it was a lead item on Drudge before the program started. You can't find it on Drudge now. So I don't know if it's taken down because it's been denied or what have you, or if it's just so outrageous or I have no idea, but it's not possible for Democrats to jump the shark. That's my whole point. It isn't possible for that to happen. Here's what she said. I believe, I don't know if I've got the soundbite of this or not. Let me just read it, and if I do have it, I'll find it and play it for you. But here's what she said. She said, I believe that any one of our candidates will stand in stark contrast when it comes to the priorities of the American people and how they're going to make their decision on who they're going to vote for president. To any of these Republican candidates. Republicans are trying to outright wing each other. Look, between the 15 Republican candidates who are left, all of them are out trying to out-Trump Donald Trump by saying, yeah, let's kick women. Let's kick them and immigrants out of this country. Let's take away health care from women. Yeah, I think any of the candidates on our side of the aisle will be chosen and eventually selected as the 45th president of the United States because of that contrast. You think that some of these Lena Dunham types are not going to believe that? They're not only, even if they don't believe it, they're going to join the chorus and say it because these people know that there are Democrat voters who will believe it. And they'll spread the word on Twitter. It'll become a whole Twitter theme. Republicans want to kick women. By all rights, the war on women is as silly as this, isn't it? The idea that a whole political party is at war with over half the population. And yet they've made that stick. So, if you've already established that the Republicans are engaged in a war on women, then isn't it natural that the Republicans want to kick all the women out of the country along with all the illegal immigrants? If you if you are a mind-numbed, robot, brain-dead, low-information, typical average Democrat, and you already believe the impossible, you already believe some of the craziest, wacko things in the world that none of us can believe they believe, why would they not believe this? Well, okay, right. Even Republicans need women, and Republicans like women. So how does the war on women work then? You denying to me that the war on women works for these people as a fundraiser technique or as a scare tactic technique? It's no different. It's no different than the way the Democrats used to always tell senior citizens the Republicans were going to kick them out of their homes. Who would believe that? And they did buy. Well, it's not that they bought it, it's they couldn't take the chance. So they had to vote Democrat to assure themselves, because they knew the Democrats wouldn't kick them out of their homes. Maybe they didn't really believe the Republicans would, but they couldn't take the chance of voting Republican. That's how it works. Anyway, I'm just saying, 20 years ago, something like this, we would have the biggest laugh. And we still could, but it's a sobering thing, because we can. I mean, I can envision the idiots that believe this. The Julias, by the way, remember that ad that Obama ran? This Julia woman who can't get out of bed every day without a government program, and can't leave her government apartment every day without a government transportation card, and can't eat every day without her government food stamp, and can't get back home without her government transportation card, and can't tend to her 5 flowers in her little garden without some sort of government program. And they ran an ad promoting that kind of lifestyle. We thought, this is a great ad. They're telling everybody they want the government to totally run their lives. And then we find out that a whole lot of Democrat women thought it was a great ad, that it really captured them and their lives. Look at, folks, it just illustrates even why there's no common ground to be had here. And there's no grabbing these people, theoretically, figuratively by the shoulders and saying, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. These people are to be defeated and rendered in the minority. Anyway, there's the No Labels group. The No Labels group is basically a bunch of Republican liberals. They are Republicans who don't like conservatives, and they don't want to be associated with conservatism. They want to be seen as intellectually elite, scholarly, superior, and they love being thought of as moderates. You know why? Because moderates, independence. That's another thing that's happened in our political culture. Those people have acquired the reputation of open-minded, which is intelligent. Like those of us who are wedded to our causes because we really believe what we're small-minded, closed-minded. We're not open to opposing points of view. But the moderates and the independents, these are the diamonds in our culture because they make up their mind issue by issue. And they're not closed-minded, and they're not small-minded, and they're not bigoted. Well, a bunch of these people got together and formed a club, essentially, called No Labels. And there's some former Republican speechwriters in this group. The former media director for the McCain campaign in 2008 is in this group. And anyway, this group had an event. It's going on right now in New Hampshire called the No Labels event. And Trump began his appearance at the No Labels event, which is apparently just a long-winded Q&A with people in the audience and whoever the officials of the No Labels organization happen to be. And I heard before the program started, Trump's kicking it. He just doing fabulous. So I asked Cookie to get me some sound bites of it. And I have them here. Let's go ahead and start with those. Starting here at soundbite number 28. It's in Manchester, New Hampshire. And this is at the No Labels Problem Solver Convention. And I guess they're having a whole bunch of candidates show up at this thing. And it was Trump's turn to speak. And during the Q&A, audience members said, I was wondering what your plan is in working across the aisle to increase civic engagement among millennials, getting college students involved, and also student loans. Now, that's a perfect question for somebody at the No Labels event. That's exact. Can we all just get along? There must be bipartisanship. We must cross the aisle. We must show the American people that we can work together. We must show that we can do good government, that we can get things done. We must. And so you've got somebody in the audience asking Trump, I was wondering what your plan is in working across the aisle to increase civic engagement among... So what are you going to do, Mr. Trump, and see to it that millennials are not so mean to each other and actually can work together with people?
Don't forget, these schools, because they get so much money from the government through the student, they're raising their fees to a point that's ridiculous. They don't need to get that kind of money because of the fact that the government is giving out so much money. You take a look at what's happened to the cost of education, and believe me, it hasn't gone up that much. So we're going to do a number. We're going to get those numbers down. And also, we're going to have jobs. So when you graduate, you're going to end up getting a nice job where you're very happy. Okay? Thank you. Great question.
Okay, so he's telling millennials they're going to be happy when he's president because they're going to have a job. They can't find jobs right now. Certainly they can't find career-oriented jobs. But he didn't answer the question. You know, Mr. Trump, what's your plan? Get people to work together across the aisle. He just skated right past it and went to what was important. Another question from the audience. I'm curious about your perspective on the Freedom Caucus of the Tea. By the way, I should stress the No Labels group is actually a bunch of libs. They're liberal Republicans. But they don't want to call themselves anything. They think labels, they're trying to be above everybody with this. Anyway, that's the next question. So, your perspective on the Freedom Caucus of the Tea Party.
I love the Tea Party. I'll tell you about the Tea Party. These are people that love this country. They do love this country, and they want the country to be great. I mean, it's very important. Go ahead.
The issue is, not to offend anyone, but quite frankly, I see the Planned Parenthood as it's a deck chair on the Titanic. That's where I'm coming from, to shut down the entire government over it. It's kind of the small-worlded mindset.
Well, they don't want Planned Parenthood funded, and I think a lot of people understand that, including me. They don't want it funded. I mean, I understand that. So, I mean, you do have that.
No labels booing Trump. That's a good sign that he's being booed by these. Don't misunderstand this. A quick time out. Don't go away. And the final Trump bite, this from the No Problems. You know what they're calling this? They're calling it the... what are they calling it? The Problem Solvers Convention. The No Labels Problem Solvers. The only problem they've ever solved is getting unemployed Republican strategists off the street. And that's about it. Next question from another audience member. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can prove me wrong, but I don't think you are a friend to women. See how this works? Who in the world? Would you look at Trump's wife and his daughters and then think the guy doesn't like women? Are you saying yes? Why? Undeniable Truth of Life 24? Okay, well, see, then if that's the case, then it just makes the case for Undeniable Truth of Life number 24 being even more solid. As Snerdley is telling you, damn right they can think Trump doesn't like women because the only people around Trump, women around Trump, are beautiful. And in order to really like women, you got to be able to embrace the Anglo-American women, too. And if you don't, then you hate women. And I don't doubt there's some thinking like that. That's why I devised Undeniable Truth of Life number 24. Anyway, here's Trump's answer to this. You really are not a friend to women, Mr. Trump.
I knew I shouldn't have picked her. I respect women incredibly. I have had women working for me in positions that they've never worked in terms of so many different jobs. I had a woman who was in charge of the building of Trump Tower many years ago, before anybody would have even thought of it, and did a fantastic job. I have given women more opportunity than I would say virtually anybody in the construction industry. I have a daughter named Ivanka and a wife named Melania who constantly want me to talk about women's health issues because they know how I feel about it, and they know how I feel about women. I respect women. I love women. I cherish women.
The fact that he has to say that, I don't know, to me is offensive. This whole idea that Republicans hate women, not friends to women. And, folks, it goes deeper than abortion. It's much, the war on women stuff goes far, far beyond this abortion stuff. Because not every woman is pro-abortion. Not even half of them. Not the Planned Parenthood. Not abortion as a means of contraception. You don't have a majority of American women thinking that. So you doubt me when I say people are going to believe Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, Republicans want to kick women out of the country, when you will admit that people might have a problem with Trump because the only women that appear to be around him are pretty? Well, this is pretty odd if you ask me. And back to the phones we go. This is Andy in Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, Andy, great to have you on the program. Hi.
Well, thank you, sir. Rush, my biggest fear is Donald's not taking us seriously, and he's not taking the campaign seriously. We would love him to run. We would love him to win. We all want him to. But I don't think his heart's in the right place.
Let me guess. I'm going to take a wild guess as to why you're worried and why you might think that he's not taking this seriously. And the guess is that you're really upset about the Twitter stuff every night.
Nah, I don't give a rat's butt about the Twitter stuff.
You don't care about that?
No, I don't. I just think that the guy, I love him to death. We all talk about him. We all my friends do anyway. And
well, then what makes you think he's not serious?
I think he's a rich man that's got way too much stuff on his plate, or got other stuff on his plate. The president thing is I wouldn't say a charade, but I don't think it's the first thing on his mind when he wakes up in the morning.
Okay, but there has to be a reason why you think this. Is it, or maybe you're harboring a fear that it's not real, that it's all just a lark.
I am harboring the fear that it's not real. That's exactly right.
But you can't put your finger on why. It's just he seems so against type. He's so not a politician, and he's all.
No, he's not. And he can. I'm sure he can do the job. I'm sure he can do the job.
Well, I think that's why you like him,
than
right?
A lot of other people, but I don't know that his heart is really in it. It may be just the showman in him. I don't know.
You don't know whether his heart is in it. It's just he's just a showman and is entertaining himself with this.
That's exactly right.
Just seeing how big a rise he can get out of people, and then when he gets filled and tired of it, then move on to something else. Build another building in Beijing.
Once again, you are exactly right.
Well, I know you're asking me if I happen to agree with you. I don't know. I'm one of the people, if you go back and look, I said he'd never get in. As recently as a few days before he got in, I didn't think he would actually pull the trigger and do it. I thought it was what it's always been, publicity for his TV show, The Apprentice, and for whatever else he needs publicity. The guy is into a lot. I mean, there's Trump-branded everything out there. There's Trump-branded vodka. He stole my tie idea. Now, wait till he hears that. No, he's got his own brand neckties. He's got his own brand of, there's all kinds of stuff out there. And it's some of that stuff was sold in Macy's. And that's why Macy's did their 180 on him early on with the comments on the Mexicans. Look, I can't tell you for sure that I'm confident he's going to stay in or get out. I'm like you. I'm just watching it go by every day and commenting on it as it happens. I, like everybody else, this Trump and his his legitimate performance and his status as the front runner. Nobody could have predicted that. And nobody did predict it. And I don't care who tells you they did, they didn't. Nobody could have. I mean, some might have predicted he would get in. Nobody would predict that he would be number one in the polls, solid and growing from the day he announced, after having said the things that he has said, and then doubling down on the things everybody got mad at. The thing, Andy, that tells me he's serious about this is I have noticed not so subtle changes in the way Trump is going about this every day. He's not making flamboyant statements nearly as frequently and as profoundly as he did early on. He's still bombastic. He still goes out and does the "I'm the greatest, I'll be the greatest, it's going to be the greatest, we're the greatest," all of that, which is entertaining, and it's inspiring, too, to people who want it to be the case and to people who believe that he can make it happen. But he is more and more issue-oriented and substantive each day. His answers to various questions now have a little bit more depth to them. And it's not, I don't think, because he's had to study up on things. I think his approach is changing. You know, you have a sense of presence. Everybody does when you're a public figure. And if you're good, you know when it's time to transform and how to transform. You know how to anticipate people's expectations. And in the case of your critics, you know how to anticipate those and confound them. And I think every stage of the Trump campaign has been a shock to the people who have expected him to get out. I think, for example, now Trump is much more serious on all these things that he's discussing than his early critics even thought he could be. Early on, he was this bombastic, say-anything violator of political correctness, wasn't serious about it, doing and saying things just to get noticed, but couldn't tell you anything about foreign leaders, couldn't tell you about what was going on in the Middle East, didn't know about fracking, didn't know. Turns out he can tell you anything you want to know about this stuff or confidently explain to you that he will find out. And I've noticed a transformation in Trump that's more and more, I don't want to say presidential, because now he has a fine line to walk. I mean, his original support is based on his being outsider and fearless, outspoken outsider. So he's got to keep some of that up. But at the same time, people have a vaunted respect and reverence for the office, and it's not to be played with, and it's not to be trifled with. And so he's got to go in both directions at the same time. Now, the reason I was thinking that maybe old Andy here was not thinking Trump was serious is because of this Twitter. And he goes in these Twitter binges at night that, well, they're funny. There's no question that they're funny, but many people think they're still petty. Some people think that they're childish. I mean, I hear a lot. If we had a caller, that woman who called and said, if he would just stop insulting people, he'd be at 40%. Well, now I've got people, if he just stopped tweeting every night, he'd be at 60%. But all these tweets, and it turns out that there have been journalists embedded with him, following him around, writing stories, and they're shocked. They're shocked the guy doesn't have a computer or a tablet in his office. He does all this tweeting at night on his Samsung Galaxy 6, 5, whatever it is that he's got. He just sits there and pecks that stuff out on his Samsung Galaxy keyboard. And then he sets it aside and goes about his business. But he does not have a computer. And he does not email. He does not email. He'll instant message. But every email that you get from him is going to come from somebody in his office. He sends out emails, but he doesn't do them. He doesn't have an email address. All of his people do. But when it comes to Twitter, Facebook, he's just in there. Anyway, I got to take a brief time out here, my friends. Much, much, much more straight ahead here on the EIB network. Okay, so here's, like, I got some people sending me a note. Rush, what is this? The Republicans are the party that gave women the right to vote, just like it was the Republicans that ended slavery. So, you really think the low information crowd, even if you could convince them of that, is going to be moved by it? You mean the Republicans are the ones that gave the women the right to vote? Yeah. Well, that was back in when? Like the 1700s? So screw that. Look at the way they're treating women now, would be the reaction you would get. And then you tell them, do you realize it was the Republican Party that was founded on the basis of ending slavery? And Abraham Lincoln was the president during the Civil War? Well, maybe. But that was then and this is now. You can't find a single Republican that doesn't hate African Americans today. And that's what you would get. So all that historical stuff, the truth, not a factor. Let's face it, folks, that's why so many people are frustrated with, well, not just politics, a whole lot of other aspects of life. None of those things are taught in our public school system anyway. And I bet you that the whole women getting the right to vote thing in public schools today probably implies that Republicans were the opponents. And there's no question that public education today continues this folly that it was the Republicans who were opposed. I'll give you another example. It's right out of the news today. On Sunday, the New York Times had this huge story that 158 families in America are responsible for funding over half of the money spent on presidential campaigns. And guess what? They all are Republican. So it said. It did not mention any of the wealthy Hollywood liberal Democrats. Do you know that the family that owns Hyatt Hotels is big socialist lib Democrat? Just all of Wall Street, take your pick, any Wall Street firm, 9 out of 10 of them, and the people that work there, multimillionaires giving to the Democrats, not one of them. This story was about 8 or 9 families that live in River Oaks in Houston, and then the Koch brothers in there. Some people live in Indian Creek down near Miami, which was said to be the richest street in America. And the reason for the story is to continue the myth that it's the Republicans who are rich and big business, when all of that has been taken over by the Democrats. The Democrat Party is the bedmate now of big Wall Street, big pharma, and big money. That's why Bernie Sanders is not going to be permitted to get the Democrat nomination. But the New York Times just ran a totally bogus story about who it is that's paying for funding, underwriting presidential campaigns. And they tried to make it out that 158 American families are running the American presidency. And they all happen to be Republican. You know, nobody's supposed to stop it. Well, if that's true, how did Obama win twice in a row? You're not supposed to ask that question when you read the story. It's no different than the public education system today. You still find that you can find inferences, well, there would be implications. You can find implications that it was the Democrat Party that ended slavery, and it was the Democrat Party that protects African Americans this day, when in fact the Democrat Party was the biggest opponent to civil rights laws back in the 1960s. And that all those Southern Democrats were segregationists. Anyway, next up is Sharon in Cleveland. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hi. A nervous, honored first-time caller.
Great to have you here. No need to be nervous. As you can tell the way other callers are treated. I'm the politest host in America. You'll be fine.
What I was thinking that I talked to the guy about is that, do you think that because Hillary Clinton has so much, she knows where all the bodies are buried in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, because I really believe that we're to the point where there isn't anybody in Washington that's not in each other's pocket, whether it's Democrat or Republican. So we can't get anything pushed through, anything done by the Republicans, because they're just as bad as the Democrats. And she knows everything about everybody. Her and her husband have been in there for so long.
All right, okay, look, here's the thing about that. I know that the stories of Clinton's in the 900 FBI files, and that was true. But if Hillary knows where the bodies are buried, then how did Obama beat her in 2008?
I think they made a deal.
Well, now, I don't know. Where does that kind of theorizing stop? What was the deal?
Well, you know, they wanted Obama in there, and
who's they?
Both Republicans and Democrats, the powers that be, the people that run this country. I think that's why Trump, we both know that's why Trump is doing so good, because he's not one of them. It's the same with Sarah Palin. She wasn't one of them.
Well, wait a minute. How do you know? How do you know that Trump's not a creation of these people just to distract us?
It's just a feeling. I just don't think he is. I think that he honestly has been part of it. I think he's probably paid for everything he's wanted to do. But now that he knows, he knows how the game's played, and he sees what it's done to the country, and I think he's to the point where he's sick of it. I mean, I could be wrong, but
if these people, if Hillary Clinton knows where the bodies are buried, if Hillary Clinton has so much power over everybody, they lay down and let her do what she wants to do, how come she can't stop Trump?
I don't know. Because I don't know.
You know what this is? This is, look, I understand the Clintons and the 900 FBI files, and I understand that Clinton's got away with everything. But I'm telling you, it's like I've always said, she is not superhuman. She puts her pants on one leg at a time like all the other guys do. She does not have any hidden source of power that allows her to achieve whatever she wants to achieve by threatening anybody else that might get in her way. Otherwise, she would already be president. She would not have willingly suffered the humiliation of being tossed aside by a veritable, we never heard of him, young guy who had never been in politics before. And I doubt that she would sit idly by and allow people to construct a phony email scandal, making her look like an utter criminal. This is my we've got to get over, and you're not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of elected Republicans that have it too. This inordinate fear of this woman. There's no reason for it. It never got fear. It's a great motivator sometimes, but it can also shut you down. And that's what it's doing to too many people. I'm just going to tell you, I don't think Hillary Clinton is half as smart as her reputation. And I think she cares about one thing, aside from the power that they all, and that's money. If you look at his emails about Benghazi that they found to her, they're all about trying to get her buddies deals and business in Libya. She's a crony, and she's obsessed with wealth. I'm half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Okay, Cookie got the soundbite here from Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. This was yesterday on CNN's State of the Union. In the last hour, I read to you what Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz said. She was talking to Dana Bash, who didn't find anything odd about this at all. So Dana Bash says to Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, who runs the Democrat National Committee. Well, you know, I call her Blabbermouth now. Wasserman, that's her middle name. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I've been calling her Blabbermouth Schultz because she never shuts up. Anyway, question. Do you believe that Bernie Sanders could beat any Republican?
I believe that any one of our candidates will stand in stark contrast when it comes to the priorities of the American people and how they're going to make the decision on who they vote for president to any of the Republican candidates. The Republicans have been trying to outright wing one another. Look, between the 15 Republican candidates that are left, all of whom are trying to out-Trump Donald Trump by saying, yeah, let's kick women, let's kick immigrants out of this country. Let's take away health care from women.
So there you have it. Let's kick women, let's kick immigrants and kick them out of the country. That's what the Republicans want to do. And there's Dana Bash nodding. Right on, Debbie Blabbermouth. Right on. In the meantime, from thehill.com, headline, Democrat National Committee officer, I was disinvited after call for more debates. It turns out that Representative Tulsi Gabbard, or is it Tulsi? Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, and it might be Gabbard. I don't know. She's from Hawaii. She's a Democrat. She's a vice chairwoman, Democrat National Committee, says that she was disinvited from the debate on CNN tomorrow night after calling for more debates. Yeah, she said this to the New York Times. When I first came to Washington, one of the things that I was disappointed about was there's a lot of immaturity and petty gamesmanship that goes on, and it kind of reminds me of how high school teenagers act. It's very dangerous. She said, when we have people in positions of leadership who use their power to try to quiet those who disagree with them. When I signed up to be vice chair of the DNC, no one told me I'd be giving up my freedom of speech and checking it at the door. And what happened was she said that we need to be doing more debates, not fewer. But Hillary wants fewer debates because the more Hillary appears, the worse it goes for her. I have made this observation no matter how many times. Do not doubt me. When Hillary hasn't been heard from in a while, that's when her numbers go up. It's when she starts talking in public that her numbers start to go down. And O'Malley and Bernie have wanted many more debates. And the DNC, which is in the tank for Hillary, has said no. So this woman, vice chair, comes, they throw her out. Meanwhile, Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz says that it's the Republicans who want to kick women and immigrants out of the country while they've kicked this woman, their own woman, to the curb. Which is how it works with these people. I was disinvited after call for more debates. Donald Trump on Fox and Friends this morning. Right out of the gate here, fresh from getting out of bed, over to Fox and Friends to rip into Obama. Steve Croft's interview with Obama was referenced last night. Steve Ducey said, so what did you think? You watched the Obama interview with Steve Croft. What do you think?
I watched his performance last night, and I thought it was terrible. I thought it was sad because everything's negative. You know, there's nothing positive. I watched him last night. I saw him say that. I mean, he can't say, I think he's going to make it, in all fairness to him. He can't say, I think he's going to be the next president, in all fairness, right? But I thought it was a little bit sad because there's so much negativity. And then, you know, he goes, what else you got? Like he's doing great. And he wasn't doing great. He was doing poorly. And, you know, I don't get it. What's going on in our country? It can be fixed in many cases very easily, but we have somebody that's more worried about climate change than he is about all of the problems that we have.
Right. So it was being reacted. I guess Obama had something negative to say about Trump. He's not serious or some such thing, and that's what Trump was reacting to. I watched it. He didn't have anything positive to say. He's some guy. He's negative and sad. He's more worried about climate change and all the problems. And that's right. Because climate change is how, climate change, the insiders are using it to coalesce and enable this gigantic government authority over everybody. Then, back on Face the Nation, Trump's all over the place yesterday. Face the Nation on Sunday. Oh, did you hear what Schieffer said? Bob Schieffer, he said he wouldn't have quit. He wouldn't have retired if he'd have known Trump was going to run. Somebody else said something like that recently. It was Letterman said, I wish if Trump were still there, I'd still be, whatever. It was something. It wasn't Letterman. It was somebody else. Anyway, too late, Bob. They've got your replacement. Glue factory. Think glue factory. So John Dickerson, it's a new host of Slay the Nation, said to Trump, says, where are you on the question of a safe zone or a no-fly zone in Syria? Now, I guarantee you that Dickerson asks Trump this question thinking that Trump doesn't know where Syria is and then doesn't know what a no-fly zone is or a safe zone, and further doesn't know if we've established one. I guarantee you this question was designed to expose Trump as not knowing anything about it and thus not being qualified.
I do not like the migration. I do not like the people coming. They're going to have riots in Germany. What's happening in Germany, I always thought Merkel was like this great leader. What she's done in Germany is insane. It's insane. They're having all sorts of attacks. You see some women, you see some children, but for the most part, I'm looking at these strong men. I don't want these people coming over here. 200,000 people. This could be the greatest Trojan horse. This could make the Trojan horse look like peanuts if these people turned out to be a lot of ISIS.
Turns out that Trump understands exactly what's going on, what he wants to talk about. By the way, he's right on the money on Merkel. A lot of people are shocked at Merkel and what she has openly said and what she is openly permitting in Germany. It's taken a lot of people by surprise, not the least of whom is me. I still can't believe what she has said. 700,000, 800,000 a year to rebuild our economy, to totally change our country for the better. Anyway, I mentioned at the top of the program that Mary Mapes and Dan Rather and that whole episode with the forged documents and the phony story about George Bush and the National Guard. There's a movie that has been made that tries to say that Dan Rather got railroaded, that he and Mary Mapes are right on the money, that the story was accurate, and at CBS fell in with big corporate interests, decided it was better to be in bed with the President of the United States and to support their own anchor, i.e. Dan Rather. So they found somebody to go out and make a movie of this, and even CBS has come out and denounced the movie as a bunch of fiction, which it is. But they convinced Robert Redford and Kate Blanchett to star in this thing, which is history revisionism. And it's actually based on Mary Mapes' biography. Mary Mapes fell in with this guy named Bill Burkett, a genuine Looney Tune. Bill Burkett claimed that he had memos, signed memos and all kinds of paperwork from the commanding officer of the National Guard when Bush was there, claiming that Bush never showed up, that Bush never made an appearance, that Bush didn't fly, did it only to get out of serving in Vietnam. And so Rather and Mapes put this story on 60 Minutes. They ran with it, and it turned out the people at Powerline, the guys over at the Powerline blog, totally exposed the documents as 100% forgeries. And it was a giant investigation. CBS found out about it and summarily canned Dan Rather and Mary Mapes. So Mary Mapes writes her biography about this in an attempt to hold on her reputation. Somehow I end up in this biography 6 times. Minor references. But last Thursday in New York, the New York Times hosted a Times Talk conversation with the actress Kate Blanchett, the actor Robert Redford, Dan Rather, and Mary Mapes to discuss the new movie Truth about this scandal that happened in 2004. Susan Dominus is the moderator. She said, Mary, when you watched the movie starring Kate Blanchett as you, did you immediately know it had to be a lie? No, I made that up, folks. She didn't actually. But if I were Mary Mapes and they had Kate Blanchett play me, I would know they're lying. But anyway, that's just an aside. Here's the real question from Susan Dominus. Mary, when you watched the movie, was there anything that either made you cringe personally, like that was painful to relive that moment? Or obviously there were some very intimate, emotional scenes involving, your... Well, maybe you can talk a little bit about your family life that, Kate portrays in the movie. Like, the scene with your father
One of the sort of subtexts in the movie is this cascading series of events where everything is just raining down, and every time I turned around or Dan turned around, there was something new and newly hideous happening to us. I have an estranged father, and we had not had contact for many years, but a right-wing radio show got in touch with my father and talked to him about his relationship with me. And then suddenly I'm driving down the road and there's my father on Rush Limbaugh talking about me, about how I always had a radical feminist agenda. You know, you haven't talked to me for 15 years. How do you even know that I haven't? But that was the level of personal attack and personal pain.
I don't know, Mary. Maybe it was a wild guess that you had a radical feminist agenda, given that you do. Well, anyway, she's running all over saying that her dad was on this show. I mean, she's driving around a road listening to Rush Limbaugh, and there's my father on Rush Limbaugh talking about me. We went back. Over the weekend, we went back and we searched the archives. You know, every word I have ever uttered has been preserved at the archives of rushlimbaugh.com. Not every word searchable yet, because we hold some of it back, obviously. Every word that I have uttered is there. So we began an exhaustive and extensive search. Now, what in the world was she talking about? Because I don't remember her dad being on this show. Do you remember her dad being on this show? In 2004? No, he didn't call in. That's not what happened. This is all I ever said about it. And in fact, this was at 1:55 p.m. on September 21st, 2004. The last 20 seconds, last 30 seconds before the break, I'm heading into the top of the hour break, and this is what I said. This is what she claims, driving around, listening on the radio, this is what she heard. All right, that's it for the second hour of the EIB Network. 1 hour to go. We'll get back to the latest of CBS and Dan Rather. Mary Mapes, did you hear what her father said about her on the radio yesterday? That she's gone crazy with liberalism and that she got into journalism to advance a radical feminist agenda. Her father's in Seattle, I think 70-some-odd years old. Her stepmother said he shouldn't speak of her that way. We'll be back in just a second. That was it. That was it. So she apparently heard that, but she thinks that her father appeared on the program. No, I don't want to. I'm not trying to. Her father was on the radio somewhere, which is what I heard about, and I think I know where her father was. I think her father was on with John Carlson out in Seattle. I think that's who found her father, is John Carlson, and that would have been. Well, it was 2004. And I heard about that. That's what I was referencing here. But she's driving around listening to the Rush Limbaugh program and imagines hearing her father. You know, these liberals can't take people saying things about them they think are untrue. Now, here's a woman who has engaged in a total fabricated, made-up story about George W. Bush. She and Dan Rather have used and accepted forged documents from a genuinely, questionably all-there figure, a guy named Bill Burkett. And they have no problem doing a phony story containing forged documents, promulgating a lie that George W. Bush never went to the National Guard just to get out of service in Vietnam and never did his required service at the Guard. They've got no problem putting that story out. None whatsoever, lying through their teeth about it. And then let her hear that her father describes her as she about has a cow. These people literally cannot stand. Either they can't stand when people tell the truth about them, and they certainly don't know how to deal with it when people make stuff up about them. But man, oh man, do they know how to lie about people. They were trying to destroy Bush's presidency. They were trying to affect the outcome of the 2004 election. This is September, folks. They're trying to elect John Kerry here. And she's on this New York Times show last Thursday whining and moaning about something that her dad said on this program. about her being some radical feminist. She can't even take it. Has to whine and moan and complain about it. Then whine and moan and complain about getting caught using forged documents and telling lies. Anyway, I got to take a break here, but you sit tight because there's much more coming. Don't go away, folks. Here's Ebony in San Diego. Really glad you waited. I appreciate your patience. Hi.
Hi, Rush. I am a millennial with a true-to-heart Republican father who I have been in a long-lasting, ongoing debate with about the fact that I am a registered independent and what it really means to be a registered independent. So if you can please help us settle this, what is the true meaning or definition of a registered independent?
Now, wait. I'd be glad to do that, but I need to know the circumstances. You said you're having a debate with your...
We've been debating about this for a while now because he is a registered Republican, a true-to-heart registered Republican. He's always raised me that you cannot, as a voter, separate your spiritual beliefs from your political beliefs. So if I'm serious about my spirituality, then I need to be, more or less voting as a Republican because that aligns with what
so your dad's a registered Republican and you're a registered independent. He's not happy with that. He's trying to you ought to register Republican. Well, what have you told him is your reason for registering independent? What have you told him why you're doing that or what an independent is?
That's actually one of the main points I bring up. I bring you up when we're talking is that I say Rush has multiple times said that as a millennial, I've never seen a true Republican president, and so I don't really have that. I guess I don't have that image of what that really means. And I guess the first president I really witnessed was Bush, and I actually voted for Bush the second time, but I voted for Obama, and I'm not voting for Hillary, and I don't know who I'm voting for, but I don't know.
Well, then you'd have. Well, you don't know who you're voting for, but is it possible you would vote for a Democrat in 2016?
I can't see anyone.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No, at this point, it's about which Republican would I vote for.
Let me help. The first thing I need to clarify when I was talking about millennials was that, this was not a critique or criticism of liberals. It was an attempt to wake up conservatives. The point that I made was, Republicans, conservatives running around whining about what millennials think. And I had to remind them, you must realize by virtue of their age, they've never had a chance to vote for a real conservative. There hasn't been one on the ballot, Republicans. You've put up a bunch of moderate squishes, but you haven't put up a conservative, so the millennials don't know what one is. Therefore, what they think of conservatism is what the media tells them and what the Democrat Party thinks of them and what the Republican establishment thinks of them.
And I've not seen... the practices of what my dad doesn't even agree with, the president, the views of whatever the Bush or whatever other candidate. He doesn't fully agree with it because they don't represent for him true conservatism. So he doesn't even. So I'm asking him. You're not like it's almost a question of like, why are you a true Republican? Why are you still? I guess it's, you can say.
Well, that's because there's no way he's a Democrat. So he's a Republican holding out hope that the conservatives will make a move and take over the party.
Exactly.
That's why he wants you on his side doing it as an independent. My guess is that his view of an independent is that you're not committed. An independent is sitting around waiting, but really won't commit to anything. Until they make up their minds. And even then, they don't want their commitment to be seen as to a party.
But can it be that one side isn't correct on everything? Can I be agreeing with this side on certain particular things?
Well, of course, but let me ask you this. Are you married?
Yes.
Is your husband right about everything?
No.
And you're still married, aren't you?
Yes.
All right. In fact, your husband's probably very rarely right, is my guess, and yet you're still there.
He's right. He's a smart guy. He's pretty right.
Okay, even better. So he's right a lot of times, but he's not perfect, and yet you're still Mrs. Whoever.
So then I think about the independent as a nice, comfortable place that I can feel where I'm sitting here and I can say, well, I'm not going to fully commit to either party until I see.
I know that's what you think.
From those parties.
I know that's exactly what you think.
Look, as a Republican, you can't say that they've been.
I know that's exactly Ebony what you think, and I'm not here. I'm not taking the occasion of your really, really good quality question. I'm not going to bash independents here. That's not the point. But your dad, I understand exactly what he's talking about. You just said it. You're going to sit around. You're waiting. You're picking and choosing. In the process, you get to tell yourself you're not closed-minded. You're open-minded. You are open to all things. Whereas these people that identify themselves one way or the other, they're just rock-solid committed and they're closed-minded or what have you. And you want to portray yourself as someone who is vastly broad-minded and open to anything and not locked rigidly into something because you fear what people might think of that. Or you don't want to think ill of it. It stands to reason for a lot of people because the media and both political parties, by the way, have made the independents feel godlike. Consultants, particularly Republican consultants, have vaunted independents to a level of importance that's greater than rank-and-file Republicans. So it stands to reason you'd want to be one. You'd want to be to focus everybody's attention. You listen to your average Republican campaign consultant, they're running around telling, yeah, he who wins the independents wins the elections. I'm the guy that can get to the independents. The independents don't like us when we're critical of Obama. The independents don't like it when we're doing it. You got to dial it back. You got to be more moderate. And so people say, I'm one of those. I'm one of those. I'm an independent because I want to be the focus of everybody's attention. And there's a difference between independent and moderate, Ebony. A moderate is just a gutless liberal that won't admit to being one. An independent is a little higher up on the chain than that. But your dad just wants a teammate. He just wants you on his team. That's all. That's what he means, but I'm fairly confident. You know, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised here. I got people in the email asking my thoughts on the Chase Utley suspension in the Dodgers-Mets game on Saturday night. And I figured if I went into that, the low-information crowd would actually have a fit. And, by the way, the Royals playing an elimination game right now. They're tied 2-2 in the fifth inning with the Houston Astros. And if the Astros win, the Royals are out, which means I'm not going in to throw out ceremonial first pitch because this is it. Well, not that I was scheduled to. No. I wasn't scheduled to. I was just first pitch. I just made a joke until they get. So that's what happened. These ceremonial first pitch and anthem singers to guarantee victory. That's what I did when I worked there. Look, on the Chase Utley thing, the league suspended him for 2 games. The reason the league did this was to prevent the Mets retaliating. I'm convinced that they suspended Utley for 2 games so that the Mets would not retaliate, bench-clearing brawl during the playoffs. But now that he's appealing the suspension, he can play, which means the Mets are going to retaliate. They will. There's no question the Mets are going to retaliate. I don't blame Utley. I mean, Utley, it's who he is. It's how you played the game. For those of you people who have not been taken over by modern-day political correctness, that's how you play the game of baseball. He was not breaking up a double play. He was taking a guy out. That's exactly what you do. He didn't even start sliding until he was past the bag. The problem in that play, very simply, I think made by the umpires. The umpires ruled that Tejada missed the bag. He was the Mets shortstop by centimeters. And the replay showed that he missed the bag, but he was trying to touch the bag and they got taken out. And they awarded Utley safe. They awarded him safe at second because the shortstop missed the... Utley never even tried to touch second base and never did touch second base. So how do you assume he left the field? He gave himself up. I don't understand you calling him safe at second after that play when he made no attempt to touch second base and never did. And I remember an axiom I was told way back in my days of the Royals. I was asked, I can't source this, folks, because I don't want anybody. But there's a rule of thumb on close bang-bang plays. umpires don't see everything. They're human beings. They miss some things. Now there's replay, but it's always been determined that calling somebody out has the least effect on the outcome of the game. Close bang-bang play, first base, so you haven't seen. This is not including plays at the plate, just a bang-bang play at first, bang-bang play on stolen base, second base. An out call has the least effect on the game. You call them safe and you're not sure. So, but that's what they did. They called Utley safe when he never even touched the bag, made no effort to touch the bag. That's where I think this all went. But that kept the inning alive. That changed the whole shape of the inning, and the Mets fell apart. They lost their shortstop, so my 2 cents. Here's Doug in Spokane. Doug, I'm glad you called. It's great to have you with us on the program. Hi.
Hey, Rush. 24/7 did this to you. Thank you so much for taking my call.
I appreciate you being a subscriber, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And just real quick, 2 points. I believe Ben Carson is going to be proven to be prophetic in his first debate performance, and when she said that Hillary's not going to be the nominee. I don't think that that's going to be. I don't think that's going to happen. And the second point I wanted to mention, just real quick, I think that the general elections, with the possibility of Carson and Trump, are pretty much gone to the Democrats right now. Therefore, I believe that the legislative branches, the Senate, the House, are the best hope for the return of the constitutional values of our country was founded upon, because the low and the no information voters predominantly vote in those general elections. They're going to vote, as you so aptly pointed out earlier in the program, they're going to vote for the Democratic Party. They're going to vote for Santa Claus every time. And I don't.
Wait, I want to make sure that I got dwindling time. You think Trump or Carson would lose the presidential race?
Well, I think with the possible exception of Carson or Trump, I believe that the general elections, for the most part, are going to be going to the Democrats.
I get it.
Primarily because of the no and low information voters that are out there right now. And I believe that the legislative branch is really our last best hope for accomplishing some kind of...
You know what? That's going to scare a lot of people, because they're looking at the legislative branch as the last best hope that's caved in. But still, your point is well taken. Under normal circumstances, we should have been seeing all kinds of examples of that the last 7 years, or certainly the last 4. Back after this. Fastest 3 hours in media. There they are. Bye-bye. Gone. Steelers, Chargers tonight on Monday Night Football. And fingers crossed for the Kansas City Royals in Houston to prolong that series. And we'll see you tomorrow, my friends. You hang in there, be tough, back in 21 hours.